Hi, so we will cover three different levels of creating your own pyRevit extension in pyRevit for Revit. Should be really short, really simple, no long guides on how to install pyRevit or Microsoft Visual Studio Code, which we'll be using for the purpose of the code editing and so on. So it's just simple walkthrough. The very first thing that we can do is after installing pyRevit and all that, open Update folder. In the Update roaming, where pyRevit is installed, we can browse to the pyRevit master folder in the extension folder, and here we'll find where the default plugins are installed, right? And what we can do is simply add one folder of our own. So my extension, the extension that is important. So pyRevit knows what to do and how to organize stuff by those dot extensions, right? So that's really important in getting it right. Then the next level down is the tab folder. If you go into my tab, and the third level down, if we drill down into a tab, we'll see a panel. So going to ours, my panel. And again, the extension is important. Oh, let me just open this one in Visual Studio though. Okay. If we just look through the example that we've been checking out, we have a push button. So that's what we want to create in here. So it's another folder called my first command, let's say push button. And inside of that, we need to have two files to begin with, the icon file and the script file. Now, pyRevit's own stuff are a bit more complicated because they have added functionality and so on, but for your general purpose, plugins, push buttons, you can just add those two files. One is the script.py, which will contain our script, and the other one is an icon. I have downloaded 3 icons here for the purposes of this tutorial. For icons, you can head over to pyRevit itself. It has a link to Icons 8 website where you can download icons, just one word for icons. The best, I found out that 96 pixel works the best. I think that's what pyRevit uses by default as well. So I've downloaded 3 ones here. Let's use the first one. We will want to call it icon PNG. And in here, we can provide, let's see if that works to begin with. Every time you make a change, you do a reload in pyRevit, and that should refresh all the changes that you've made. It's going to be taking a little while because I'm doing a recording as well. And here we go. We had our first command. Of course, there is a typo, but it's really easy in pyRevit to change and fix stuff. We will also add a hello world in here and reload. And that should be working. This will printline our first command, right? So that was really simple. However, that's not the recommended approach, right? Because you are effectively hijacking pyRevit's own structure, and that could lead potentially to, you can mess up something in future. Basically, that's not the ideal location where you would like to be adding your work. So what we can do though is add any folder on your machine and use that as a repository for your work in pyRevit. I'll take in my documents, for example, I've created a pyRevit and extension folder, so I can work in here, let's say. I will just copy the whole folder from before, my extension in here, and I will call that my second extension. Let me open this one now. My second extension, my tab will be here, and my tab, we can call that my second tab, let's say. And for the icon, we can use the second icon. We'll delete the first one, rename this to the icon.png, hello second world, let's say. And now pyRevit wouldn't be able to pick that up. We need to point it to the right direction. I will just copy the location of this folder. And under pyRevit, the correct way to do it is to go to the settings folder, settings, command, icon, whatever, too many folders, and add this as a location. So now pyRevit would know where to look for more extensions, and after loading the default ones, it will go and add those additional ones. And there we have it. We have the first tab, which is not to be used. Then we have the second one, which is the correct one. And it works. And that was the second level of adding your own work, which is the perfect for purposes of a single individual creating his work. Now, the third level is useful when you're deploying work on a global scale. Let's say you're creating the ribbon for your organization in a big company. That's where this should work for you. And that uses GitHub. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to be using GitHub client for Windows, so GitHub desktop or whatever it's called. You can use whatever you want. It's all good. So there is just, let me do it. I'm going to point to that same location and use that as a repository location. It's going to be called my pyrepo. I'm going to initialize it with a README and an MIT license. And I will publish this repository. I would keep it public for the purposes of this tutorial. You can do it as a private one, but just adds an additional really easy step in pyRevit to allow for the credential input. My first repo, let's say. I'm going to place that on GitHub. And I would also want to open it up in GitHub. Right now, it doesn't have anything. And before we add it successfully to Revit, there are a couple of steps we need to take. So first of all, in pyRevit, the way to add that is to add it to the list of extensions. And the list of extensions from here, and then we can enable, install it, and so on. But first, we need to add it to this list. And this list is effectively located in the app data folder once again. pyRevit master extensions, and it's that extensions.json file. Let me open that here. And as you can see, there is indeed a list of objects. This is a JSON object. which correspond to all those here, the PyApex, the Revitron, the Revitron UI, and so on. We can trace them to each of those individual objects. The easiest thing we can do is copy one of those and paste it in here at the end. It will contain a number of pairs. So the ones that we need to care about the most are the GitHub URL. Let's replace this one first. I'm just going to copy the URL straight from the browser and paste it in here. The website, you can place your own. That really doesn't matter. As long as there is something that is able to open, it should work. So I'm not going to deal with that for just right now. Author, yeah, of course, edit that as you should. Just going to put me as an author. Description. And this description goes here. The name obviously is important. My by, let's say, and the type is an extension. I copied the library, but it should be an extension. It's not a built-in, and it's enabled, and it's remote compatible. So save that out. Now, going back to Revit and pyRevit, if you open the extensions tab once again, we'll see that there is now a new entry called mypy, that points to the repository that we would like to publish our work in. However, that repository is currently empty. So what we need to do is, let's find the repository show in Explorer, and what would happen eventually is that we'll install that inside of a .extensions folder. So pyRevit will do the work for us. So then what we need to do is go a level down. So we want to copy all the way from tab to the end inside of the repository. And let's call this my third tab. My third command, and let's use this body here. It really doesn't matter what it says inside, but with that information in the repository, we're ready to create our first commit. And we can push that out. This, of course, now gets loaded on GitHub, and we can go ahead and install the extension. You can install the extension in pyRevit extensions. And that's working as well. We have the first one, not to be used, then the second one, which is a local repository, and finally we have the third one, which is now on GitHub. Let's say we would like to make a change of some sort in that repository. It can be anything. We can add, let's say, another panel to the top. Which contains basically the same information. And any change that we do, we can commit and push to GitHub and use pyRevit to pull that update locally. And it should, in theory, take our change and there we go. We have everything neatly done. Now, this is amazing when you try to roll out your work across an organization, because every time you make an important enough change, you can just push that out to GitHub, and the user on the respective end, that would get reloaded every time a Revit starts anew, but they can equally just push this update and have the change ready. It's on the downside, obviously, that there is the fact that it's not as smooth workflow to use for debugging and while you're working. In order to combine the best approach for debugging and deployment, I would suggest that you make a little change to the repository folder structure. So let's see how that's organized. Now, if we open that on GitHub, we will see that it contains the tab folder in its root directory. So this thing will get copied, downloaded, and updated locally by pyRevit and placed into a folder called something.extension. So let's see exactly where pyRevit decided to place it. It's under pyRevit extensions. So update pyRevit extensions. And here pyRevit will create this .extension folder for you. And then this is effectively what's coming from GitHub, right? And this is great, but it doesn't necessarily help us in production. So what we can do is locally remove this as an extension. So that gets unloaded now from Revit. And that's still our repository though, right? So let me just close all those guys. They're just adding up. This is still our repository, right? What we could do is nest that into an extension.extension folder. So let's say test.extension. Yeah, extension. And move all of that into this folder. Now, there will be a problem first where we would have lost the location of the extension, but we can simply point to the correct location once again. And what that would do for us is that now, back inside of pyRevit, we can add this one as another folder where pyRevit would look for extensions. There we have it back again. Only this time this is local for us. So any change that we do, so that it's in here, my fourth panel, my third panel, okay. Let's copy, paste one of those. And that's a new push button. I'm too lazy to change any of that, but just for the sake of the demonstration, let's reload. Oops, I clicked something by mistake here. Let's just reload. And there we go. We have a new command here, and it's much simpler to debug and control our environment as well. We're not pushing all the changes as we go, but only when we're ready. So when we are ready, those changes will have, been added to GitHub, and we simply create some sort of changes commit. We push it to the main. Our users across the organizations will have those updates ready. And that's the best of worlds, really. Once again, there we have it, the 3 levels of adding your extension to pyRevit. The first one, which shouldn't be used, is simply hijacking pyRevit's own structure and adding that extension folder inside of the extensions right here. The second version is way better, and it's how you should be doing if you're servicing yourself really or working locally. And that's creating an extension folder and adding that root folder to pyRevit's settings. And the third way is adding a GitHub repository and amending the JSON file. Here is the second one. And the third one is amending the JSON file. I have closed it now, but yeah. And here it is. Yeah. And adding your GitHub information in here. And you should then be able to roll that out across a wider organization. And there we have it. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. And bye-bye.